All right, what's up, guys? My name is Devin Reno. I'm an independent wrestler, surgical technician, and one half of the Pretty City Express. And today we're going to talk about the 5 skills that you can develop before signing up for wrestling school. And more specifically, what you can do to prepare yourself in the best way possible and set yourself up for success in wrestling training in the wrestling world, in my experience and in my opinion. Um, Another thing is, we're actually going to do this. I'm going to break it down by age bracket because I think it's super important for anyone at any point in their life, if they want to do this, to know what they can do at their stage in order to set themselves up for success. Because I've mentioned many a times on this channel and in person talks that I was looking up these questions when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. So I want to give um, kids who may be watching this hope, but also like the goals that they can be working on. Because I think it's super important to treat the youth of tomorrow with, um, how do I say, like, give them the tools to work on what they want to, because it helps build confidence. And as somebody who coached youth sports for 10 years or so, they get kids in general get talked down to so much, whether you notice you do it or not. Kids can see, oh, they're talking to that adult different than they're talking to me. And most of the time, it comes off as condescending. Teachers talk down to them, coaches. I'm not saying all of them, I'm just saying a lot of them do. And I don't think it's malicious. I think it's just that's how that's the world that they experience. So I want to kind of change that with this video and go at it from hey, you looked up this video, you found this video, you want to be a wrestler, here's what you can work on at any age. So the 5 skills that I would like, um, that I guess the 5 skills that are going to be recurring throughout the video are the skill of being an athlete, right? Athlete minded, and not just physical athleticism, but what that means in being an athlete. Step 2, social skills, just basic social skills that'll actually set you apart when it comes to the weird world of wrestling. Skill 3, we're going to talk about work ethic and how you can develop that through several mediums in order to prepare yourself. Skill 4 is a huge one and very much lacking, I think, in society, not just wrestling, but self awareness. And step 5, we're going to be talking about the skill and ability to be doing your own research and doing quality research, not just typing into Google and seeing what comes up and going with the sponsored result. All right. So if you are under the age of 13, I started resistance training at 12. So I guess if you are under the age of 12 and 13, um, some things that you can work on being younger in the world. One, you can ask your parents to join a sport. Sports are awesome. I recommend gymnastics, wrestling, or any sort of martial art, just because it teaches you the importance of being a part of a team while also having individual responsibility. And with most grappling, martial arts, and gymnastics, there's a body control element that directly translates to pro wrestling. So, those are my recommendations. If you are a parent of a younger child, then and they expressed interest in this and you want to be supportive, great, that's awesome. Get them in a sport along those lines, because not only do the physical skills directly translate, but the mental accountability, or the self accountability, and the mental strength also directly translates. So if you want to set yourself up or set your child up for success in this field or industry, and honestly in life, those sports are going to be what I would recommend. And then for you youngins, you're gonna hear this a lot, and I heard it a lot, and I got bored of hearing it. And you're probably gonna be like, "Man, Devin, you were so cool." Um, why are you telling me this too? I thought you were cooler than everyone. You got to work hard in school. And it's not because it's just like stay in school, kids. It's if you work hard at something you don't like, which if you love school, awesome, great, that's great. A lot of kids don't. If you don't like school and you get used to working hard at something you don't like, then in wrestling, there's a lot of things you're not going to like. And in life, there's a lot of things you're not going to like. And if you develop the kind of superpower to work hard at something, even if you don't like it, you're going to be so much better off when you're an adult and when you're doing things that you really do like doing. There's a lot of things in wrestling that I don't like doing, but because I worked hard in school and because I worked hard in sports, it's just in my DNA, so to speak, in my behaviors that I just work hard in it. And so if you can develop that behavior now, it's only going to be better off in it's only going to set you for a better set you up for a better future. So I'm not just saying work hard and stay in school because everyone else is. I'm saying work hard and stay in school because if you work hard at something that you have to do and that you may not like to do, one, you'll probably end up liking it. And two, you're actually going to be better off than your peers and your friends and people who came before you because you're going to have the ability to just suck it up and keep working. So that's super, super important. Next, I want you as a younger kid to learn how to talk in front of people. I know it's really hard, but there are plenty of opportunities for you to do that. If you're in school, ask questions, raise your hand and ask questions. I know it can be nerve wracking. I know that sometimes you can be scared that people are making fun of you, and they might. That's okay because when you grow up, people are going to make fun of you anyways. So if you learn how to deal with that now and kind of get over that fear, then you're going to be way more successful later on. So ask questions in class, raise your hand, have all the attention on you. When you give group presentations, don't be scared of it, be excited about it. And how I used to do, or how I used to think about group presentations is one day I'm going to wrestle and I'm going to have a microphone in front of thousands of people. So I'm going to treat this class like they're an arena full of thousands of people. And guess what? A classroom filled with 30 of your friends and peers is a lot less scary. Um, Even though it might feel more scary because you're younger and your world is smaller, if you get good at it now, you're going to have such an easier time growing up. So ask questions in front of the class. When you give group presentations, be the first one to go up there. If there's a presentation for extra credit, I know it's harder work, but just try it. And I promise you, by the end of that day, nobody's going to remember your presentation because everybody has their own life to live and everybody is doing their own things throughout the day. That it's going to be nerve wracking having everyone's attention on you for 5 to 10 minutes, but it's only 5 to 10 minutes. By the end of the day, you might not even remember it, much less your classmates. So if you can just power through for those 5 to 10 minutes and talk in front of people, the skills you gain from that and the confidence that you gain from that are actually going to super, super, um, they're going to really help you as you get older, especially if you want to get into wrestling. If you are unable to be in sports because of family reasons or whatever the reasons may be, then you can always do push ups, sit ups, and squats. You can look up with your parents' permission how to correctly do push ups, sit ups, and squats, and you can do those all day. And what I would do, and what I suggest you doing, is start with a daily goal, right? So when I was younger, I would do 100 push ups a day. I went through, it wasn't every day. I went through stages where I would do it for a couple of weeks and then not do it, and then do it for a couple of weeks and then not do it. I would do 100 push ups and 100 crunches. So, but I would space them out throughout the day. So if you want, just start low, start with 20. I'm going to do 20 of each today. And then have a notebook or something and write down every time you do a set of 5 or a set of 10. And then every week, just kind of bump the number up a little bit. I used to have when I would coach gymnastics and Ninja Warrior, I would have 6-year-olds working on push-ups and crab walks and bear crawls and squats and jumps and all the things. So it's not going to hurt you if you do it right. It's actually only going to help you. And there's no research to show that it stunts your growth or anything like that. If that was the case, then a lot of child athletes would be way shorter than they are, and that's not true. A lot of that and almost all of that is up to your genetics. So please don't be scared of that. Just start doing push ups, sit ups, and squats, and you can go from there. All right. If you are under 12 and 13, those are the best things that you can be working on right now. If you want to add on to that, start learning how to draw, start reading, not comic books, but start reading a lot because wrestling is very creative. You could read comic books too, but I'm just saying read in general. If you read and you intake a lot of creative work, it's only going to help your mind be more creative. And I know you might hear like, oh, you kids and your imagination. I used to think, how can you not have an imagination? But as you get older, a lot of people's imaginations shrink, and it's a sad thing. But the more creative work you intake, and you read or you watch or you just consume, then the more creative you're going to be as a person. So don't be afraid to draw. Don't be afraid to write stories. I was a terrible artist, but I would always draw because I wanted to be creative. So don't be afraid to do all of those things because it's only going to help you in the art aspect of wrestling. Okay, now ages 13 to 17, kind of junior high, high school age, we're going to talk to you guys for a second. Still, the number one thing is be in sports. Um, the biggest reason for, and I can, because it's more of an older demographic now, that I'm addressing, the biggest reason I suggest being in sports is because it develops mental strength, it develops routine, it develops a ton of good habits, and most importantly, it develops, like we were talking about earlier, the skill of being an athlete. And what that means is being coachable, working really hard, even though you might not have the vision that the coach does, and doing your part on a team as much as putting in effort to make yourself a better individual. When you were in pro wrestling and you were on a card or part of a company or so on and so forth. Let's talk about an independent show. Not only do I have to do my best because individually I want to be the best on the card, I also have to do my part for the entire show. So if I am opening the show, I have a way different part and a way different role than if I'm in the main event. If I'm third match right before intermission, I have a different role than if I were the opener of the main event. So I have to play to that role so that the overall show can be as good as possible. And if everyone has that mentality and everyone does it, not only do they have a good time, the crowd has a good time. People want to spend more money on merch. They want to buy tickets to the next show because the overall flow is great. And if you can develop that mindset of being coachable and doing your part as well as making yourself as good of a person as you can be on a team, then do that. So be in a sport, like I said, wrestling, any sort of grappling, mixed martial art, or gymnastics, I feel are the best avenues for that. Striking too, but in my opinion, try to limit your risk for concussions as much as possible. So, on top of that, you are now old enough to kind of start resistance training with weights or more sports specific performance training. And by doing that, look up very, very smart. I always look to people who are smarter than me, who are more experienced than me. That doesn't always mean, for example, I had a wrestling coach who was probably 350 pounds. He wasn't the best mentor in terms of lifting weight and eating healthy. So I had to look at outside resources to develop how I should actually be doing those things. So just because people are around longer than you doesn't mean they doesn't mean they know more than you. It means you have to respect them, especially if they're in the role of a coach. There's going to be a lot of people that you meet in life that you might not like or agree with, but everybody deserves respect. So I'm not saying start having an attitude with your coach because you think you know more than them. I'm saying realize, hey, maybe they're not the best at coaching this. So I'm going to go out and find other ways. But while I'm in their presence, they will 100% have my attention and their respect. So Renaissance Periodization is probably it's a YouTube channel, RP Strength, that's actually very good. Dr. Mike Israetel has a lot of great information for practical use at any level, really. If you want to get into resistance training and if you want to be a pro wrestler, you should. You don't necessarily need to have a gym membership. I know sometimes they can be a little bit expensive. So talk to your parents, see what options are available. Maybe you can get a set of dumbbells, or maybe you can stick with body weight calisthenics. Those are all great. The push up, sit up, squats still applies as you grow up. And if you are in a sport, it's even better. On top of that, start reading wrestling autobiographies, start watching the documentaries, and don't just read and watch them for entertainment purposes, even though they are entertaining. But like, take in what those people did at your age, take in what sports they were into, take in what they were doing to exercise the creative part of their brain, and focus on that kind of stuff. So when you read an autobiography, and my favorite was Chris Jericho, right? So when Chris Jericho was talking about when I was 12, and he was talking about in the book his life at 12, I zoned in because I'm like, okay, these are the things he did when he was my age. What can I do right now? What can I do to mimic that or look like that? And obviously, stay safe, and obviously, don't do anything dumb, and talk to your parents if you have questions. But you should be watching and reading these things and going like, okay, how can I set myself up now for being successful like a Chris Jericho or a Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, and doing all those things. So start looking up podcasts. The Art of Wrestling podcast is phenomenal in terms of learning more about wrestlers and the journeys that they went through to get to where they are. That's my biggest recommendation there. Um, for this level, it's really hard because you're starting to gain confidence, and you got your body's going through a lot of changes, you got a lot of hormones raging, and you start to, because I've been there, you start to think that you know everything, and you start forming your own opinions, which may lead you to start disagreeing with people who were there before you, or your parents, or your coaches, or your teachers. And that's a part of life. I'm not telling you not to do that and just fall in line. You need to, you should have opinions, and you should stick up for yourself. And also, you need to learn the difference between being confident and having an ego. So, being confident is I can do anything I set my mind to. Having an ego is I deserve everything that I want. So, confidence is I can do anything and I can get anything as long as I work for it. Having an ego is, well, I want that, so I deserve it. Sometimes you're not working as hard as you think. And sometimes the people who came before you have perspective that you might not that you might need to hear. So if you're thinking, "Oh, well, they don't know me," you might have to go through that, and then you realize in a couple years, oh wow, okay, they did know what I was going through. That happened to me a lot, and that's why now when a vet in wrestling tells me like, "Oh, you're not going to want to be doing that in a couple years," I go, "Oh, well, I'm not sure why he said that, but I'm sure I'll find out." And I stop saying like, "Oh, okay," or "Yeah, okay, sure." Yeah, I always just go, "Okay, obviously they tried this and it didn't work out for them, so why? Why didn't it work out?" And I'll either ask questions, or I'll start breaking down why I do that thing that they're warning me not to, and go from there. So remember, confidence is I can accomplish anything that I set my mind to. Ego is I deserve anything that I want. Two very different things. The final thing I'm going to say to this age bracket is learn how to speak and conversate with adults. Like we talked about earlier, there is a huge, I think it's an issue, but that's my opinion, issue where kids are talked down to a lot. The reason why I feel like I was such a good youth coach is because I would just talk to the kids, and I would figure out how their day was going so I can get a sense of where their mental state was at that day. So when they walk in, I go, "Hey, how are you?" They go, "Fine." I go, "Great. How was your day?" "It was good." "Okay. Did you do anything fun?" No. Oh, well, I did this today. And I would include them on my day. And they would go, oh, that's cool. Because how often do adults talk about their day with the kids, right? They only just go, hey, how are you? Good. All you ever say is good. That's all I ever hear. Good. You need to start like igniting their brain a little bit and being like, oh, okay, well, my day was fine. And just start talking to them. And then it becomes a conversation, not an interrogation. And I feel like once kids realize that I'm letting down my guard, they let down theirs. And we can just talk about their day or what they're going through. I can't tell you how many times I heard about their school boyfriends or their school girlfriends who talk to another boy at lunch or talk to another girl here. And I would just have to be like, oh, okay, well, how did you feel about that? Okay, well, what are you going to do about that? And instead of like making fun of them or like, oh, you're not allowed to, it's not my place to tell them they're not allowed to do anything as a coach besides keep them safe. It's my place to hear them out and to walk them through the steps needed for them to have a good class or a good day. So, on the flip side, if you're a kid, or I guess a teenager in this regard, just start asking adults, hey, how are you? When you get, one, I can't tell you how much I think it'll mean to your parents or your coaches or your teachers. We just go, hey, how are you doing today? Oh, okay. And just talk because I promise you, there are so many people and I'm sure it's other art fields, not just wrestling, who are just awkward. They're extremely awkward to talk to and they didn't develop social skills. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. And I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying that, and class taught me this very early on. If you are just a normal person who can have conversation, people will remember you because they're like, "Oh, I like talking to that guy. Oh, I like talking to that girl. I like having conversations with them." And so that's going to make you a very it's not going to make you a valuable asset to a locker room, but it's going to make you a welcomed person in the locker room, which what's the harm in that? There's no harm in that. So what you could be doing is initiating conversations with older kids or your older brothers or your parents or trusted adults. Don't go just start talking to strangers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying talk to your teachers, talk to your coaches, talk to your parents, the adults in your life who are put there because they are trusted. Start talking to them and start developing social skills because like I said, it's gonna set you apart if you know how to talk to people when you're older. And that's the only way you can really do it. And it's gonna be awkward. Teenagers are awkward as hell. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but so are you probably. That's okay. I'm still awkward now. I was 100 times more awkward when I was a teen. So don't be afraid to just talk to your parents. Just ask them about things. Talk to your teachers. Be like, oh, okay, well, how was that? I'm not saying cross personal boundaries. I'm just like, hey, how you doing today? Oh, okay. Hey, I noticed this with the game. I don't watch sports, but like with the game last night, I noticed this. What did you think about it? If you're on a sports team, like do stuff like that. Ask them about their like I had some coaches who really like the UFC. Just talk UFC with them because that it's just going to help you later on. All right. If you are an adult, a grown man or woman, you need to get in shape before you get into wrestling school. You need to hit the gym. And what I mean by that isn't you need to be a bodybuilder. It means you need to be able to do a rigorous CrossFit workout. And I'm not saying go do CrossFit. If you want to, that's great. Do it. I don't do CrossFit. It's not my jam. I know a ton of people who do, and it's great. But that level of cardiovascular intensity is roughly the same as a wrestling training class, at least beginner. It gets more intense from there, but at least beginner. That's a pretty good mindset to have. So focus more on circuit based training, focus more on getting your wind up rather than I'm going to power lift. I can't tell you how many people come to the school. Oh, yeah, I go to the gym, I power lift. Well, okay. First of all, that just means you like lifting heavier weight without watching your nutrition. 95% of the time, that's what that means. I have a lot of respect for powerlifting as a sport. I'm not strong enough to powerlift. I like being strong, so I take a lot of my training inspiration from powerlifters and I adjust it for my goals. But if you walk into a wrestling school, namely the Arizona Pro Wrestling Training Center, and I hear, "Oh, I power lift," I think, "Oh dear God, they're going to be blown up in the warm up." And 9 times out of 10, I'm correct, because as they're running around the ring for the first 5 minutes, they're panting, they're out of breath, they're sweating, they're taking a break, and I'm like, I thought you went to the gym. So focus more on cardiovascular based, high intensity training, circuit training, yoga, full range of motion, that kind of stuff to set yourself up for success. Then when you get into wrestling school and you get kind of conditioned for that, then you can start worrying about your physique. Because most of the time, people who are either coming off the couch or coming from no background of athletics straight into wrestling don't have a cardiovascular base, and they think, well, I need to look a certain way, but they don't look a certain way anyways. So you might as well get one part down, and then as you're wrestling, focus on the other part. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Take your time. Focus on one thing, then move on to the other. Focus on getting the cardio base, then work on your physique. Second, research schools, and this is part of that fifth skill of doing your own research. And it's not just, this sounds rude, it's not just what's the cheapest, what's the closest. You need to look at these schools. You need, if they have graduates, see their graduates. If they're tied to a sister promotion or they're tied to a promotion, look at the promotion, watch some of their matches on YouTube, and think, is this good wrestling? Is this something I want to be a part of? And if it's something that you would be ashamed to be a part of, then don't do it. Find somewhere else. And I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, but this school is like 10 minutes away. That one's like an hour. You are going to have to drive 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I've driven 16 hours to places before. An hour a week for your lifelong goal, or an hour there and back, is really not that far. And if it is too far, then you're lying to yourself saying this is all you've wanted to do. My opinion, that's it. Take it or leave it. But research the schools that you find most credible, and ultimately you can say, would I be proud to represent this place? Would I be proud to represent this logo? Do the owners take pride in it? And I can tell you right now, if you can walk in, pay money, and take a bump within 15 minutes with minimal supervision, probably not a great school. Um, I'm sure there are some out there, but if they don't want to know what kind of shape you're in, if they don't want to see you at least in a minimum workout fitness setting, then they're probably not worried about your safety. And that is a little sketch to me. So go somewhere that takes pride in its students as well as takes pride in their logo and what their reputation means. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask them like, "Hey, what are the requirements? What do you guys look for?" I'm trying to. Here's the best way to do that. No one's going to fault you for wanting to be prepared. So if you message the school, okay, and you're inquiring about information, don't just say, "Hey, I'd like to join. What's the deal?" Don't just say, "Hey, I think I'd be good at this," or "I've always wanted to do it. What do I need to do?" Or "When are you guys open?" You can say, "Hey, I've been looking into wrestling training. I really want to make sure I'm set up for success and I'm ready to hit the ground running. What would you recommend, or what are your physical requirements before you accept students?" And if they have a list of like, here's a physical like tryout that you need to be able to hit, or these numbers, or if they give you good advice regarding physical fitness, that means that they probably take the sport seriously, and you're in good hands. If they just say, "Oh, just come on down and we'll see," go check it out with a watchful eye, um, and just be self-aware, like we talked about. Like, be aware of, and not just self-aware, but be aware that just because there's a ring, it doesn't mean it's a great place. Um, Finally, All right, sorry, I got distracted. Um, Finally, check your ego and your ideas creatively at the door. So, if you have a character, that's great. Keep it to yourself at first. I can't tell you how many people I see. I really want to do this character, and there's an essay of backstory and lore, and I go, "Oh wow, that's really intense." When? How long have you been working? Oh, I haven't even started training. That's cool. You also don't even know if you can wrestle yet. And I tell this to a lot of the students too. You don't know what you're good at yet because you haven't done it. So I thought I was going to be this one thing when I started wrestling, right? And I was like, oh yeah, and it relied heavily on um, personality and like being able to step into a character, which I I'm I'm not the best at because I'm myself, right? So check your ideas at the door, keep them, right? That's awesome. Work your creative brain, but be open to the fact that maybe this like really tough guy you want to play isn't great because you suck at strikes. I'm trying to use examples without picking on people. Um, so myself, I thought, you know what? I really liked amateur wrestling. I trained with a lot of people. I coached for a little bit. Maybe I'll wear like a singlet and I'll like kind of be more of a technical guy. And then I realized like chain wrestling, not really my thing. Not only am I not great at it, I'm fine at it, but it's not a passion of mine. Like when I actually went to do it, I was kind of like, okay, that's fun, but it's not fun, you know? So I kind of had to like exnay that idea. Um, and just what am I good at? I'm good at selling. I'm good at being like a douchebag and I have a punchable face. So I should lean into those aspects because if I'm trying to convince people of something that I'm not, they're going to buy it. And if I don't believe in it, they won't believe in it. So table your ideas, check your ego at the door, figure out what you're good at first, and then gear your character to what you're actually good at and what you're comfortable with doing in the ring. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the bell rings. And if your wrestling doesn't reflect the character that you put in and all of the work that you put in, what are we doing here? It doesn't make sense. So be creative, have your ideas, don't walk in thinking that's what you're going to be, and certainly don't tell your coach, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I see a lot of people do that, and a lot of them have a really harsh reality check when they realize it's harder than they thought, or they're just not cut out for that. That's kind of where the self awareness comes in. Where now I'm like, oh man, that original character, maybe I could pull it off, but it would be really tough because I'm not great at like thinking, oh, what would my character do? My character is just me turned up to 11. Like it's Devin Reno, the surgical tech, but thrown into the world of wrestling and stripped of all filters and governors. It's just my raw thoughts and reactions turned up to, 10, 11, 12. And that's why, like, in real life, people laugh at me, or like in a competitive setting, at least, like, oh, yeah, he's got, emotional regulation issues. That's what class calls it. Because I'm very passionate about things. I'm a very intense individual when I'm in an athletic or competitive environment. So I let all of that out during wrestling when I'm on camera or something like that. In training, I've had to learn to really like whew, keep it in and communicate how I need to, how it's going to be heard. But when I'm wrestling, that's me, dude. Like that's me with no limits on it. Um, so just keep your ideas to yourself, get your feet wet, figure out what you're good at, and then go from there and talk with your trainer about it. Okay, so I hope all of that helped. I hope I gave you something that you can work on at every stage of your life and your career. We're going to round up the 5 skills, right? So one, the athlete or the skill of being an athlete, you need to be coachable and you need to have the ability to dig deep and work hard and exert yourself physically as well as being coachable. Being coachable is huge. So one, the skill of being an athlete. Two, social skills, just talking to people, knowing how to conversate, knowing how to just keep a conversation going without being awkward, or knowing when to leave a conversation. That's huge. And I get it. People are awkward. I'm awkward. If you talk to me in person, some people say like, "Oh no, you're not awkward at all," and some people are like, "Yeah, Devin's kind of like a weirdo, huh?" Yeah, a little bit. It depends on when you catch me, but it is something you need to develop and you need to work on. Three, develop a strong work ethic. More specifically for you youngins, things develop a strong work ethic and things you don't want to do. So school, chores, if you can force yourself to work really hard at those things now, you're going to be a superstar in no time when you get into the real world. You're going to just I'm going to work hard no matter what. That's going to take you way further than anything else. Number 4, the skill of number 4, the skill of being self-aware. Know your weaknesses, know what you need to work on, and be open to the idea that you might not know your weaknesses yet. Everybody has them. So if I were to go and wrestle in front of a crowd and a vet on the show goes, "Hey, you're not really good at this." And if I were to go, "Well, nobody's ever told me that, so I don't buy it." Instead of, "Oh, wow, I've never heard that before. This guy has, or this girl has an eye for that, and they pointed that out. Thank you." And okay, now I'm aware of it. Now I need to work on that. And now I'll either ask them or I'll go to my trainers and my mentors and I'll say, "Hey, I got this pointed out to me. I agree. I think if somebody saw that and they were willing to tell me I need to work on it, I need to work on it. How can I work on it?" That's being self-aware in a productive way. Um, and then number 5, finally, know how to research. Know what you're looking for, know how to tell good schools from bad schools, know how to tell quality of wrestling. And ultimately, that comes down to putting yourself in the best position possible, the best environment possible to succeed. That's the ultimate goal in doing your research. It's not what's the cheapest and what's the closest. It's where am I going to get the best investment, not only on my money, but on my time spent going there? If I drive 10 minutes, but it takes me 4 or 5 years before I'm capable and maybe even good, versus driving an hour, but it only takes me a year before I'm a solid wrestler with solid fundamentals and good storytelling because they're the better school, do the math, okay? Probably drive the hour. That's what I mean by do your own research. So I really hope that helped. I liked it. If you're a parent and your kid has expressed interest, please use. I hope this helps you like be able to guide them a little bit better because it's advice that I wish I had. My parents were awesome. They were so supportive. They put me in all the sports. They helped me so much. But they didn't know what pro wrestling really was, you know. So if you can take my perspective and use it to guide your kids, that's honestly my goal for this. Um, Comment below if this helped you or anything that you think people should be working on and anything that you noticed when you started wrestling. Oh, I wish I knew this when I was younger. I wish I developed this skill when I was younger. Because ultimately, I want like the younger generation to see this and then see the comments and be like, oh, wow, like I can look at all of these people telling me what they wish they knew when they were my age. Yeah, that's a cheat code, kids. Take it. If you don't take it, I'm sorry. That's on you. But the world doesn't go around unless there are people leaving things behind for the next generation. And I truly believe that. And there's no point in keeping information to yourself because a rising tide brings up all ships. That's always been my mentality. And that's what I kind of want to spread with this channel going forward. So thank you guys so much. I hope to hear from you. And then I hope this helped.